Welcome to the You at Your Best podcast. I'm your host, Morgan. Before we get into the episode, let me give a little bit of an introduction for anyone who's new. If you like listening to someone process life in real time, or you are neurodivergent, an overthinker, a perfectionist, or maybe feel things deeply, this is the podcast for you. This is a non-professional, very human podcast about choosing authenticity over performance. My goal is to remind you to always come back to yourself. I talk about very deep things. I don't avoid vulnerability, but I trust you to know what resonates, what feels safe, and what might be too much for you right now. And I also share a journal prompt at the end of every single episode to help you think. So join me if you want to create a life that actually feels like you, so that you can become you at your best. All right, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. Hello, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. For this week's fun episode, I'm not going to continue talking about what I was talking about before. I feel like I kind of already said everything that I need to say about it. Instead, I am going to talk about things that instantly make me emotionally spiral, coming from an overthinking perfectionist who is often struggling with an existential crisis. Right now, I'm sitting in the car. Honestly, today hasn't been the best day, so I just wanted to sit down and record this episode and help me get into a better mood. I have been really into social media and fashion and makeup and just fun things that I have always enjoyed, but for a long time kind of forgot about here lately. I've been focusing so much on my podcast and my toddler and other things in my life that I've been forgetting about things that I enjoy. So this episode is kind of me going back to that, just fun, lighthearted episodes that may feel a little bit lazy, but are so fun to record, and I genuinely love listening to episodes like this, and that's the whole point of me keeping this third episode every single month. So let's just go ahead and get into the episode. I already have my list of things. A lot of these things may repeat themselves. I just wrote them out, and whatever came to my head, I wrote it down. The first one is worrying that my podcast episodes feel too overwhelming for people that are listening, but also worrying that they're not human enough. Like this push and pull almost of like wanting my podcast to be more professional, but also wanting it to be less professional. Whenever I'm editing my podcast episodes, it's weird because I love editing whenever I'm in the right headspace, but sometimes I can get like trapped in like all of these worries about like, what if my podcast episode is not good enough? What if I'm not being authentic enough? What if all of these things that just come into my mind that aren't true, but in the moment feel really true. The next one is people casually misunderstanding something that is deeply important to me. It's the worst feeling in the world, being misunderstood, especially whenever I'm trying to explain myself and it feels like someone just can't get it. I can start spiraling into like, maybe I'm not good at talking, and like maybe I can't explain things as good as I thought I could. And also like, does this person actually care about me? And just like stuff like that. Next is my toddler waking up right when I start getting into the zone. This is so frustrating for me, and it's something that I struggle with on a daily basis, balancing my interests and things that I genuinely love with everyday parenting life. And whenever this happens, whenever I start feeling like I don't want to get up and I don't want to go get her, I can sometimes start spiraling into feeling like I'm a bad mom because I don't want to go get her. But then I just get up and go get her anyways. And sometimes whenever I'm with her, I have a really hard time letting go of what I was trying to focus on before, because that transition is so hard. It's brutal, honestly. The next one is trying to figure out how I want to handle my social media and my podcast. I kind of talked about this a little bit. I sometimes start to worry if I'm not niche enough, or if I'm too niche, or if I should broaden what I talk about. This is a really big one for me here lately. Next is trying to relax, but then I start to spiral and somehow turn normal relaxation moments into self-improvement, or this need to perfect how I'm resting. The next one is being criticized whenever I'm already overstimulated. This one happens all the time with my boyfriend, and then I'll tell him that he's being mean, or I'll get upset because I think he's being mean on purpose or he doesn't love me. I often spiral over being overwhelmed by having so much on my plate, such as like constant creative ideas, spending time with loved ones, working on my podcast, discovering personal style, planning our trip to Japan, learning about parenting, reflecting, gaining self-awareness, photography, because I actually have, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on here, but I do photography just on my phone, mostly of like my daughter, and sometimes I do it for free for other people. But just having all of these things that I care so deeply about and feeling overwhelmed because I have so much to do. Like, I love that I have so much to do because it's so fulfilling, but it can be really overwhelming, and then I'll like start to worry that I'm doing too much and I'm exhausting myself on purpose. And this also sometimes results in me trying to organize my life when I'm emotionally exhausted to begin with, and then feeling shame because I wasn't able to get everything figured out. Honestly, maybe I just need ADHD meds. It might help. And then that actually leads into the next one, which is spiraling whenever our apartment is a mess because of how busy my family is. Feeling emotionally disconnected from myself for a couple of days. This happens quite often. I'm so reflective, and there's always something new that I'm uncovering without even meaning to. For me, a lot of the time, what's so frustrating is that there are times where I actively try to reflect and understand something, and there are other times where it just won't get out of my head until I reflect and talk about it or create something about it. So it can just become so overwhelming whenever my brain is always reflecting and learning new things about myself and naturally finding new trauma responses and dismantling those. And it's great, but it's exhausting sometimes, and it's like I can't have a break because even if I'm not actively trying to reflect, my brain is forcing me to, because I can't feel good until that thing that won't get out of my head is out. The next one is realizing that I haven't had as much alone time as I need, and then I'll start to like overanalyze all of my life choices because of that, randomly remembering something embarrassing that I did. Although, as I have healed, whenever this happens, I usually just laugh it off and move on now. The next one is realizing I have grown and healed so much, but still sometimes get triggered anyways. It can be so confusing, but then I remind myself that it's completely normal because I'm literally just a human being, and human beings get triggered all the time, even the most healed person in the world. Next is feeling like I have so much depth as a person, but never being able to find the perfect words to share that side of myself. But this one is actually becoming easier as I mature and grow as a person, which makes me really happy because it has been one of my like top 3 struggles my entire life, and knowing that it's getting better is literally the best feeling in the world. And actually, I recently learned that I am someone who processes things bottom up, and like I don't fully understand what that means, as in I don't know how to describe it, I don't know how to explain it, but I've been learning how to communicate in a more top-down way. So if you've noticed like on my episodes that I am communicating differently and maybe seem a little bit more confident in what I say, it's because I'm learning how to communicate in a way that isn't so confusing to other people. And that's a part of why I've gotten so much better at explaining and articulating how I feel, because I'm finding the words and the metaphors that would normally just go over my head. The next one is something that I have been really struggling with here lately, and as I've been trying to grow my Instagram, because I'm going to say it now because I just realized that I haven't talked about it yet on here. I recently switched my personal Instagram over to being private, and my podcast Instagram is now my public personal Instagram. So that account isn't just for my podcast, it's also just for me. So while I've been trying to grow that account, I have been really struggling with trying to make something meaningful while also wanting it to perform well online. And I feel like a lot of creators will relate to this. It can be really hard to find that balance, and for me, it comes with constantly doubting myself, constantly questioning my choices, because I may come off as more confident than I am in my episodes, but I doubt every decision that I make. I overthink every single thing that I decide to do. Every single episode I put out, I worry if it's good enough. I sometimes have to give myself a little bit of a break after I put the episode out, because I have to put some distance between me and that episode before coming back to it and seeing like, what could I do better next time? And I just sometimes get so anxious that I end up making decisions that weren't the right decision in my podcast episodes. That's really hard to admit, but it is an ongoing struggle for me even now, even being someone who kind of has a little bit more of an idea of what I'm wanting to do with my podcast and my overall brand as Morgan Sneed. The next one is my brain turning the simplest tasks into this whole philosophical thing instead of just doing it without thinking, like doing dishes or a parenting decision that I make. I can sometimes start spiraling into this like obsessive worry about like, was that the right choice, or why did I make that choice? What was the trauma response behind that choice? And just like stupid things. And sometimes it gets to the point to where I can't even enjoy simple things. Like sometimes I struggle to enjoy doing my makeup while listening to a podcast, because I'm like, am I listening to a podcast to distract myself from how I feel? It's just, it's exhausting sometimes trying to decide whether I am intuitive or just anxious. I think I'm both, honestly. The next one is realizing that I am emotionally processing something while in the middle of recording an episode. This is the worst thing in the world. I can start spiraling so easy while I'm recording podcast episodes, and then I'll start worrying that I'm going to cause other people to spiral themselves, and then I will over edit that episode out of fear. This next one is something that happens to me way too often. Feeling so creatively inspired but exhausted at the same time, and trying to find balance because my brain needs one thing and my body needs the other. And actually, I've kind of figured this one out. I've learned that our brains need different types of rest at different times, and if my brain won't shut off but my body is exhausted, I can find something that like holds my attention enough that I can be mindless and rest at the same time, like watching a show or watching YouTube. Just having something that is stimulating enough that my brain isn't overthinking or trying to create, but is relaxing enough that I don't have to move my body and I don't have to consciously put any effort in. Next is I can often compare my work to the work of other people who have completely different styles and completely different brains than me. I don't know if that one's obvious, but that's something that I struggle with a lot, comparing myself and feeling like my brain isn't good enough, or what I'm thinking of right now, and this may be a little bit confusing to some people, feeling like it's not fair that everything that I do and how my brain is wired and all of my experiences feels so different from the average person's. I feel so different than everyone else, and I don't know, I guess I just feel a lot of grief sometimes about that. Like, why can't I just be normal for once? Like, I write weird, I talk weird, I express myself weird, everything about me is different, and I love that about myself, but also sometimes I just feel this deep grief. The next one is getting emotionally attached to tiny details that other people don't notice. And an example that I actually have of this happened yesterday while I was creating the carousel post for last week's episode. I spent way too much time trying to find the most perfect font for that post, and literally most people probably wouldn't even notice that, but I spent so much time on it because like I was so perfectionistic over that tiny little detail that didn't matter. And also 2 of the pictures that I made, I redid them like 3 times because I was like, they're not good enough, they don't look right. And at the end of the day, people probably don't even notice. Most people probably don't even take the time to read the post anyways. Or even like what happens most often, worrying that I didn't word something perfectly in a podcast episode. The next one is feeling like I have a million emotional tabs open in my brain all at once. It's so exhausting. Like my brain is always thinking of millions of things going on. And then the next one is trying to figure out if I am processing my emotions or intellectualizing them as I'm processing it. So like worrying about a million different things all at once. Honestly, I'm usually doing both at the same time. Next is feeling calm and then panicking because I'm calm, because I'm not used to feeling calm. And that's all of them. Everything that I shared, all of this is the exact reason why I work so hard to ground myself and why I talk about the things that I do on my podcast and why I need my boyfriend and my daughter and things outside of my own head to help me stay grounded and present. I tend to float a lot, so when left to my own accords, I can get trapped in my head, which means that there's this constant push and pull to go into my head and be present. And I don't know if that has been as obvious here lately. I feel like I've gotten really good at hiding that, not intentionally, but because I've been trying to make my episodes a little bit more for other people and less for me. But sometimes my fun episodes of the month can be for me, and that's what this episode was. And this episode felt really good. I'm so glad that I got to sit down and record it. Hunter is inside with our daughter. Like I said, today wasn't the best day. Today's Monday and he was at work today and I was with our toddler all day, and she has very big emotions here lately and it's been a lot, and I've just been so overwhelmed and like struggling with my own struggles, and like I'll talk about all of those coming up because today I made a realization that I already created an outline for a podcast episode that'll probably come out in a couple of months because I already have so many things that I want to talk about. But it's nice just having an episode like this where I don't have to force myself to communicate in the opposite way of how my brain is wired, and to just talk in my bottom-up processing style, whatever the hell that means. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will definitely be making more like this in the future because I want my podcast to be fun and light as well as deeply reflective and introspective, because I'm both of those things. This week's journal prompt is: if my brain had a close all tabs button, what would I be afraid to lose, and what would actually feel like relief? So whenever you close all of the tabs that's open in your brain, what would feel relieving to let go of, and what would you be scared to let go of? Okay, that's all for today. If something in this episode resonated, share it with a friend who needs a little reminder that they're not alone. If you want more conversations like these, be sure to follow and rate this podcast. Downloading this episode is one of the best ways to help this podcast grow, so be sure to do that. If you want to find me on social media, all of my links are in my link tree in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next Sunday.